Couple C-clamps here.
Good evening, everybody. This is session 3. Today we're going to talk about upwind sailing and the windward mark. Last week we talked about starting, and the week before we talked about getting yourself ready and get your boat ready. And like I said before, preparation is a very important part of sailing well. When you come to the club, come early. Don't be here rushed at the last minute, because then you miss a whole lot of stuff. When you're driving in, do you look at the water? How many people stop at the corner over here and look out? What'd you see tonight? Did you look out tonight?
There was a sailboat.
There's a sailboat out there, but the water's relatively flat today. Not a lot of breeze, probably 5 or 6 knots of breeze. Just general observation. I didn't check the weather report because I'm not going sailing. I checked and I found out it was going to be sunny. I thought it was going to rain, but the rain is gone, dissipated. But what I find when I get to the club is if I keep my eyes open, I start picking up a lot of information. And that's all good part of my preparation, how I'm going to sail, what sails I'm going to use, maybe how long is the race going to be. I get all these things in my mind, and then I start figuring out what's the wind direction, and I start thinking about what the course is going to be. Because I can probably, with pretty accurate certainty, figure out what the course is going to be before they announce it. I know the PROs, I know their tendencies. I've been doing this at Cedar Point for a long time now. So it's easy to predict stuff. But with that said, preparation is key. Having the right clothes, having the right crew. And you come shorthanded, it might not be a good night tonight for us because we don't have enough people. We can't get the spinnaker up and down. Or I'm by myself, it's going to be hard to tack and jive and all those things, right? If you're in a smaller boat. Jib and main, you need 2 people on the boat. Someone to trim and someone to dry. In the bigger boats, maybe you might need a 3rd person because things get farther apart on bigger boats. But, when you start talking about spinnakers, now you need to put sails up and down. You need a bunch more people. So be prepared yourself. Make sure your crew's prepared. Everybody's got their foul-weather gear. Always bring foul-weather. I don't care if you think it's not going to rain for the next 6 months. Bring foul-weather gear. You never know what's going to happen. I've been surprised, but I always have gear. So then last week we talked about starting. And let's review that a little bit. We had 4 principles to a good start, or 4 parts. 4 things we needed to go. What was number 1?
On time.
On time. Very important to be on time. If you're late, you're giving people a head start. If you're over early, you got to go back, and you're giving people a head start. What's the second one?
Speed.
Full speed. Full speed. Why is full speed important?
Race.
If you're on time and you got full speed, you're out in front. Right? You're already a leg up. You're not behind. Starting behind is not a good feeling, does not make a good feeling for any race. Whether it's sailboat racing, car racing, foot racing, or whatever. So, full speed is important. What's number 3?
Favored end.
Favorite end. Why is favorite end important? Is it always important? Is there always a favorite end? Is the question. And it's not always important because it's not always favored. So if it's not favored, if this line is perfectly square, You can start anywhere on the line, as long as you have number 5 or number 4. What's number 4?
Clear air.
Clear air. Now, clear air is important because it lets us go full speed or fast. And you want to keep that hold to leeward so nobody's controlling you. If someone's leeward of you, they have right away, and you have to keep clear. Right? And keeping clear means exactly that. You got to stay out of their way. And they can go anywhere they want. They can go up to head to wind. And you got to stay out of the way. And if you don't, you've fouled them, and then you have other problems. You have to do a 360 or 720, depending on what rules are in play. But if you're in clear air, you don't have to worry about that.
Steve, are we 360 or 720?
What's that?
Our sailors-
We do 360.
We're-
We're at 360 unless it's within 3 boat lengths of the mark, then it's a 720. Clear air is important because it lets our sails do all the work and breathe. You have a smooth airflow across your sails. If you have dirty air, you don't get a smooth airflow, therefore you don't go as fast. Any questions on that in starting? And what's actually, number 1 should be show up. Why is showing up important in a series?
Are you speaking metaphorically or just?
No, just across the board. Why is showing up or coming to all the races you can important?
The numbers on up?
What's that?
Like you just get more chances to be better.
You have more chances to be better, you get more practice, that's number 1, but you get more throwouts,
Right.
right? If we have 16 races on a Wednesday night, and we count 8, and you're in 9, how many throwouts do you get?
1.
1. If you're in 16, how many do you get?
8.
8. If you look at, the scores at the end of the season, and you'll see, the top 3 boats in your division, they're in more than 8 races. Very few are in just 8 races. So that's important, showing up. All right, so let's get into today. Today we're going to talk about the windward mark. 1, 2, 3. What did I just draw? I drew a zone around the mark, 3 boat lengths. Why is that important? Windward mark. Rules change when we get there, and we'll get to that in a little bit.
It determines position. Who has the right of way?
It determines, there's some rules changes at a mark. You still have, port, starboard, windward, leeward, and all those things, but there's some changes and variations to the rules at windward mark, and we'll get to that when I get to the windward mark. But first, let's talk about our upwind leg. We're starting. We're at the start, we're going back and forth. What are we doing? We're planning our start, right? That's when we plan our start. We get out there, see what's going on, see what the wind is, see how the course is set up. You see how the line is set up. You find out if it's square or if it's not square. We go to the middle of the line, go head to wind, stop the boat, and whichever way the bow is pointed is the favorite end, right? But sometimes there is no favorite end, so the bow will be pointed straight at the windward mark. And that's a good thing. That would be a good thing. But wind shifts, we have oscillating shifts in this area, we have persistent oscillating shift, and we just have persistent shifts. So you have to be aware, and we do that homework. We talked about that when we talked about starting. The homework that we do before the start is we try to see if we take wind readings every 5 minutes or so to see what the shifts are. Are they left? Are they right? Do they go and come back? Do they go, come back to middle and then go to the other side and then come back to middle? Or do they just go to one side and come back? It depends on the wind direction and the land topology and all that stuff matters. So when do we plan our windward leg?
Before the start.
Before the start. Plan our windward leg before the start. We look around and we see a lot of ripples on the water up here, and it's pretty flat here. All right? Our start line's down here. We're all down here. Here's the starting boat. Here's the starting pin. Now, we're gonna look up the course. Now, the course could be north and south, this way, or it could be east and west, this way. What are the other things we have to think about when we plan our leg? Current. Let's say for this example, this is north. Which way does the current flow?
East-west.
East-west, right? So it's gonna be in one of these directions. Right? Let's pick one. Since this is a crappy arrow. Current's flowing that way. And it's max. This would be max ebb.
Flow.
So if this is north, it's coming from
That's the west.
the west to east, right? So picture this board turned around, right, from where you're facing. So we're at max ebb. Max ebb could be anywhere from 0 to a knot and a half around here, right? 1.5. Where is it stronger?
In the middle of Long Island?
Out in the middle of Long Island Sound. So if we're facing this way, it's going to be less as we go north, more as we go south. So there's going to be less current up here and more current down there, right? So we're going to plan our leg. Is there a lot of, in a northerly breeze, does it really make any difference which way do you go upwind? Say the wind's the same across the board. What do we do with the current? Well, okay, let's do it this way. Here's my boat, in the green boat. What's the current doing to my boat? Pushing it to the right. So if I'm going left, what's it doing? It's pushing me closer to the mark. Right? If it's pushing me closer to the mark, that could be to my advantage, rather than going the other way, and it's pushing me away from my mark. Right? So if it's pushing me towards my mark, that's a good thing. Now I get up here, I'm out here, and I tack. Because I have to go around the mark. What's the current doing to the boat now? It's pushing the boat towards the mark. It's still pushing the boat towards the mark. Right? So it's going to give you a little push this way. If I'm over here, I'm going against the current. So all things being equal, except current, right? Which way would you plan to go? Left. I plan to go left. If I'm planning to go left, where would I start on the line? The line square.
Wouldn't we start in the middle?
I'd start left.
But is
That's,
it in
that's, you know, that's 100 feet I don't have to go. Or, actually, it's not really 100 feet I don't have to go. If I start here, and I'm out here like this, I want to go left. If I want to go right, do you want to be here? Do you want to be this guy if you want to go right? No, because you can't go right. You gotta wait for him to pass you, and then you can go right. If you're going left, and you're here, or here, on starboard, everybody's going left. So, speed's gonna be more of a factor here, boat speed, than where you're positioned. Is this boat ahead of this boat? No.
Has an advantage.
No, not necessarily, and I'll show you why. These are our two ley lines. Now, you've seen this, if you ever watched America's Cup in the last, 10 years, you'll see that they put these lines across the screen. What do these lines say?
Ladder.
It's a ladder. They call it a ladder, it's a ladder. If I'm here, here, and here, who's in front? Nobody. Now we're gonna move the wind. What happens to all the boats? They head higher, right? What happens to the ladder?
Shifts.
Well, if the ladder moves, all those lines are going down this way, right? So this guy's gonna be in the lead. But he's really not, because we all go into the mark up here. The wind went that way, but the mark didn't. So let's do it this way. This is the wind.
But the ladder's position relative to
The ladder,
right?
the ladder is, you can move the ladder to see where you are, but the ladder's telling you how far up the course you are.
Is the ladder relative to the mark or to the wind?
You can do it either way.
I mean,
I like to leave the ladder alone because it tells me where I am as far as where the mark is, who's closer to the mark. Is this guy ahead of this guy? If you move the ladder, right? If you slant the ladder, this guy's gonna be ahead. No, this guy's gonna be ahead.
yeah, like I said,
The right guy's gonna be ahead because the line goes this way. All right, let's get a different color. Okay, the new ladder would be like this. Right? More or less. So this guy's farther up towards the wind, but he's not really farther up towards the mark. So does he have an advantage? Sure, because he doesn't have to tack. He can go right around the mark. This guy goes straight, he's going here. This guy goes straight, he's at the mark. So they have to make their way this way. So you want to be on the side, what does that tell you? You want to be on the side that it's shifted. Okay, if it shifts right, you're on the right. You're good. If you're on the left,
And that's assuming that the current is negligible, right? That you don't have to care that it's pushing you across that shift.
I'm sorry.
So, so on this course that you have, is that current flowing from west to east?
Yeah, the current's still going the same way. So that's that's important. Just turn that some more.
like, is it that important though? Because if you go left, you have to go into the current to get left. If you go right, you're,
Right.
is it
Well,
that
now,
important that's going across the course?
There's another factor here as well. Is the wind the same on both sides of the course? If the wind's better on the right, are you gonna go left with the current, or are you gonna go right with the wind?
I'd rather go where the wind is.
I'd rather go with the wind. But, you wanna sail the lifted tack. And if the wind, if I'm on starboard tack here, the wind goes to the right, what happens? I'm lifted closer to the mark, right? That's lifted. if I'm on port tack, and I'm sailing upwind here to here, and the wind shifts to the right, what happens to me?
Or not.
Am I going towards the mark?
No.
No, that's the headed tack, right? So away. So you want to sail the lifted tack, obviously. If you're over here, if you're this guy, can you sail the lifted tack if it's a right shift? The shift is down to the red. Can I sail, what's the lifted tack? The lifted tack is this.
You cross your fingers.
I'm not going to the mark. I have to get over here, right? So I'll have to sail the headed tack to get over there, if the wind stays to the right. Does that make sense? Or am I confusing everybody? Let me know. Speak up. If I always want to sail the lifted tack, why do I sail the lifted tack? Well, if I sail the lifted tack here, then I sail the lifted tack here, my progress to the wind mark is going to be like this.
When you say sail the lifted tack, you
It
mean
means
tack
the
on the
wind keeps
lift.
shifting, right?
Yeah, keep tacking on the lift.
It's tacking on the lifts. If I sail the lifted tack, my angle is going to be here, like that, and go around the mark. If I sail the headed tack the whole time, which line is longer? I should have used a different color. Which line is longer? The headed, you sail the headed tack, it's longer distance. Right? Because the wind's going to shift back and forth. So we have two strategies here. We have a current strategy and a wind strategy. They don't always jive. And it's been my experience to follow the wind. It's much more productive to follow the wind than the current, because the current may be half a knot. But the wind if I'm playing the wind right, I'm going less distance to the mark. That's going to get me there sooner. Or if I go to the side that has more pressure, I'm going to be sailing faster. Maybe I'm sailing at 6 knots instead of 5. That's a lot more than the half a knot, right? So it depends on, is it max? Is it a max flood or ebb? Or is it a slight flood or ebb? That's why you have to know that. Those are important things. I have to get a green marker. Do we understand the difference between a lift and a header? If you sail the lift, the wind moves left. The wind's over here. I'm sailing closer. Then it goes back to center. And then it goes right, so I tack. So I'm sailing closer. If I'm opposite that, if I'm fighting that, I'm just going to sail across the course a lot. I'm not going to do a lot of sailing towards the mark. How do I know if what do I use to judge if I'm on a lift or a header?
Compass.
Compass. Also your eyeballs. Here we have, we're not out in the middle of the ocean. We have landmarks, we have towers, we have all kinds of things. If you don't have a compass, if you're in a small boat that doesn't have a compass, like a Vanguard 15 or something else, what are you using? No, you're not using your phone. What are you using? You're using landmarks. I'm on port tack and I'm headed towards the towers over here. All of a sudden now, I'm headed to the right of the towers. On port tack, or starboard tack, doesn't matter, on attack. So I'm going to the right of the towers, I'm lifted. If I'm going to the left of the towers, I'm headed on starboard tack. And vice versa on port tack.
Can I ask about a continuing shift? So let's say you're all on starboard.
A continuous shift, or persisting shift, which means every 5 minutes it's going 3 degrees to the right. And it's gonna go from north to west, to east to south. And you know that because that's what it said in the weather forecast, right? So you can say, okay, it's going right, it's going right, it's going right. And we talked about Rich Gold, and he read the weather forecast one day. We were crossing Long Island Sound on a distance race. And it was supposed to go right. It never did. He went way right and finished an hour behind everybody else. He was banking on the weather forecast. Is that always a good idea, to go way right? He thought he was going to come up smelling like a rose. And he did not.
So in that situation,
But he could have gotten lucky.
well, that's the thing, if you read if the whole fleet read the conditions
But-
such that it didn't make sense to do that.
Just because the weather report says it's going to go to the right, does that mean it's going to go to the right when you want it to go to the right? Answer is no. You have to see what's, that's why we go out early and we do those head things. If we see every 5 minutes it's 3 more degrees to the right, and it never goes back before the race, what are we going to assume? What can we assume from that? Assume it's going to go to the right. If it goes to the left every 3 minutes, then it comes back, and then it goes to the left 3 more times, and then it comes back. That's a persistent oscillating shift. It's still going to go, but it won't go as far. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, when it's out of the north like this, it's shifty. It's puffy and it's shifty. And the puffs will come from a different direction. Most of the time, puffs are righties. So if we're coming across, if we're on this side, and the puffs are coming from here, we're gonna get headed, and then the puff's gonna go back, and then we'll tack the other way.
What did you guys say about the northerlies, the last 3 days or 4 days usually, and the last day is more,
We won't pay any attention to that.
okay.
Don't pay any attention. It's more stable, on a northerly, on the first day is more stable.
Okay,
That's what you need to know.
that's it.
The northerlies don't last here that long on Long Island Sound. We're from the southeast, most of our wind. If it's from the south, sometimes it'll be steady. It'll be less shifty and less puffy from the south than it will from the north. Easterly is usually our steadiest breeze, because it'll come for 8 days in a row out of the east, or 10 days, or maybe 5 days, depending upon the front that's coming through. Westerlies are usually short-lived. We don't get a lot of westerlies. But we get a lot of, on Wednesday night, we sit up and we head to the beach. Now, when we talk about current in the northerly, what about current in the southerly? Does it change? Well, just as we get to the windward mark, it's going to be more and more current. Just have to know that. And from an easterly and westerly, one tack will be favored, the other tack will not. Or upwind will be favored and downwind won't. So upwind, if the wind's out of the east, and so is the currents coming from east to west, upwind, I'm going to go left. In towards the shore, out of the current, as long as the wind is the same. Downwind, I'm going to go left downwind because it's the other direction, right? Not saying if you go left upwind, you go left downwind. I'm not saying that at all. You have to depend on what's going on with the wind and the current. Is the current at max or is it just a little bit?
Do you wait for, if you know that the shift is gonna happen, say every 10 minutes?
How do you know that?
well,
Because you were out early and you took readings.
So that's
And it tends to stay the same, but it will change. But
So,
it tends to stay, you can kind of count on it being the same, but not always.
so, so you know it's coming, say, from the north originally, you start off on your starboard, you know that it's gonna be going right.
If I think it's gonna go right, I'm not gonna bang the left corner of the course and come in on a port tack to the pin. Because when it goes right, I'll be going across the course instead of up the course.
But you're not gonna attack before the shift because you're so confident in your position.
I'm not gonna attack before the shift. I'm
Not
gonna
gonna be
wait.
able to go, it's been
And that's what
2 minutes,
people,
I'm
you know,
gonna
people,
attack.
sometimes shifts are 30 seconds. Sometimes they're 3 minutes, sometimes they're 5 minutes, sometimes they're 20 minutes. So it depends on what's going on that day. If I know the shifts are, 30 seconds, am I gonna worry too much about? I'm gonna try to be on the right, you're gonna try, but you can't tack every 30 seconds. That's, you can, but you're not going anywhere. You're gonna be really slow.
Yeah.
So are there, depending on the overall wind direction,
It depends on the wind
is it
direction.
easier to see? Like, are there some conditions where like seeing the wind shifts is not that
Well,
simple?
when it's puffy, it's easy to see, because you can see the dark water coming towards you,
Right.
or going away from you. So you can tell. What's another way to look at what's happening with shifts?
Other boats.
Other boats, boats in front of you. Are boats in front of you sailing to the mark or away from the mark? What's their angle? If a boat in front of you is sailing 20 degrees lower than you are, what can you expect as you move up the course to where he is? Now, he's not going to be there anymore, but where he is. It's that you're going to get a header there, right? You're going to get headed, so you look for it. So you look at the other boats ahead of you, especially if you're in, if you're starting last, you can look at the division. If you're in Division 1 and Division 3 goes first, I would be looking at those boats when they started and watching them approach the mark. Not that there's that great a distance, but you can get a 5-minute view because there's a division in between you. If you're the next division, you don't get that much of a view. It's, they're 5 minutes ahead of you to start, but then your faster boats, that's going to close as you get to the windward mark. So we need to pay attention to those boats as well as what our knowledge told us when we did our readings before the race. And basically, basically, we're gonna do our planning by what we see ahead of time. So if we see a boat come off the starting line on starboard, tack over to port, and you see he's drifting out this way, are you gonna go that way? No, he's sailing ahead of tack. He's not sailing. If he tacks, it's going to be 90 degrees. So you might go this way first and then wait for the. If you're in doubt, what do? Or if there's no shifts, do we go way out here?
No.
Bang the ley line? And we'll talk about how to find the ley line in a minute, but if you sail the ley line and you get a lift, then you're reaching into the mark. You went a longer distance than you needed to go. Right? So my advice, when in doubt, stay in the middle. So you can take a small advantage of a lift, and a header won't kill you. Right? It's safer. It's more conservative. If it's more conservative, there's less chance to get big gains. But then again, we're all sailing fast, so we can just sail fast and not worry about it, right? Some of us. Some people. But, you know, the boat that sails the longer course, because they're not in what they call in phase. If you're in phase, it means every time you get headed, you're tacked onto the lift. You sail the lift. That's in phase, right? If I'm sailing all the headers, that's not in phase. You're gonna sail a longer course. So practice what's a lift, what's a header. When you're going out, you're just day sailing, you just have the jib out. You don't have the main up. You're just going out. Do you pay attention to anything, or are we just having a good time all the time? That's a good time to practice. And what you do is you practice looking at your compass. The compass says 180. I'm pointed at the stacks over here. Okay, I'm pointed at the stacks. This would be south, and this would be on the other side. And then the compass says 185. Am I still pointed at the stacks? No, I've moved. 190. Right? I'm moving. So tack. Tack over to the other side. Remember the number. It's going to be at 110. Right? Now I'm going to sail towards, you know, the railroad tracks or something. Another landmark on the other side. I'm at 110, sailing to that. What happens? Oh, I'm not sailing to that anymore? Or maybe my sails are not trimmed properly. I am sailing to that, but poorly. Because my inside telltale is going, you know, like a wizard. Or the outside telltale is going like a wizard. We want our telltale to do what?
Runs on the main or on the?
We want them flat.
stays?
Right? Unless you're going dead downwind and then they're no use at all. We want it flat. So my telltale is here and here, 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 and it's going around in circles. My sail's not trimmed right. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
When you're looking around the course and you're driving
Yeah.
as an experienced helmsman,
Yeah.
how much time are you watching your telltales? How much time are you
I'm
looking?
always
around?
watching the telltale.
So you're just letting the crew
I
look
can,
around the
I
course.
can peek.
Glance, but you're
I can glance, but I'm
constantly-
constantly on that those telltales. If you're driving the boat and you're not looking at the telltales, you're driving slow.
He has care of them too.
Because you tend to look right, you tend to look right, and what happens?
Yeah.
You steer right. You look left, you steer left.
Well, I'm constantly.
I give
watching
you an
telltales.
example. I was in a small puddle jumper going from Grenada to St. Vincent, I think. And they put us all in different seats. And this woman named Flo that I know, she was sitting next to in the co-pilot seat. He was on the right, she was on the left. Every time she said something, he turned to look at her. And what happened to the airplane? He went left. She kept talking until finally everybody in the plane said, "Flo, shut up!" Because he was distracted. But it's the same in a boat. You know, every time you look to the left, you didn't turn to the left. You look to the right, you're going to turn to the right. So we can try to minimize that. But looking at your telltales is important, but also keeping an eye on the compass. This is all right in front of you. The compass is right in front of you, hopefully. The land that you're pointing at across the Long Island Sound is right in front of you, and your telltales are right in front of you. You're not left all over the place. You should have someone else on the crew, unless you're in a laser, then you gotta do it all yourself, right? But you should have the other crew, you should assign someone on your crew to look for puffs maybe more than one person. Look for waves. Puffs are important to look for going upwind. Why? You don't want to be knocked over unexpectedly. And what can you do in a puff? There's a few things you can do in a puff. The first thing you can do is head up a little bit so it doesn't affect you as much. As the puff comes in, you can head up and point a little higher for a minute or two. And when the puff goes away, you can, if that's not enough, it's still knocking you over, you ease your traveler. Or your mainsail, whatever. Do you ease your jib
No.
going upwind? No, that's rock steady because you're following those telltales, right? As the telltales change, you change. Right? The outside telltale is dancing. What does that mean?
You're heading to.
Come up.
Right, it means you have to let the sail out or come up. If the inside one's dancing, you gotta fall off or pull the sail in. If you're already close hauled, you gotta fall off, right? Does that make sense? So now we've put together a few things that help us go upwind. One, we made a plan before the start. We want to go right, then we're going to go left. What's the current? What's the wind? And where's everybody going? Everybody knows who the leaders in their group are. You know the guy that wins all the time, or the Carl Schurters of the world.
Not anymore.
What's that?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
If they're going left, he's going left just for a reason. He's a good sailor. He's been doing it for, he's 80 years old. He's been doing it since he's 10. So that's 70 years of experience, right? So he kind of knows what's going on. He's been racing his boat every week,
That's it.
as far as I can remember, since 2007. That's when I joined the club. I rarely see him on the dock on a Wednesday night. So he's got the experience. So if you see that boat going right, that's another hint. Why is he going right? Try to don't just go right. Say, well, if he's going right, I'm going right. Try to figure out why he's going right. Because then you'll learn something. If you just follow him, you're not going to learn it. All right. Talked about ley lines. Let's talk about ley lines. What's a ley line look like? What is a ley line? A ley line going upwind is a 90-degree (45 each side of the wind, right? And we can only sail at 45 degrees. We tack at 90 degrees. Generally. Some boats can go closer to the wind than others, and some boats can't go quite so close, depending upon the boat. But we're just going to talk in generality here. So we're going to talk on the 90-degree angle. So how do we know we're on the ley line? We're going this way. How do we know when we get there?
It's usually 90 degrees off your midships.
Right, it's 90 degrees off. Now, in the back of the boat, what do you got to look through? Unless you're on the side and you look across your steering wheel, you got nothing. If you have a tiller, you got nothing. So are you the best judge of that? No, you're not in the right place. You have nothing to gauge it. I got winches. I can guarantee most of the winches on most boats are at the same spot on each side. They're symmetrical. You can sight across the winch, and when the mark lines up, you're there. You have a cabin top. Sight across the cabin top. You have a main traveler maybe down here. Sight across something that goes across the boat. If you have a big steering wheel, On Espresso, I have a 5-foot wheel, or bigger than that. So I can sit here, here's my wheel, and I can tell by just sighting across the wheel am I on a lawn?
But that's not midship, right?
What's that?
It's not midship, it's in the bottom.
It's not what?
It's not midship of the boat.
No, it doesn't have to be midship, it just has to be straight in a straight line. Anywhere, you know, you're talking, 30 to 40 feet, it's not gonna make a lot of difference, right? It would make more difference the further out you are, okay? Because then, 3 degrees is much bigger when you're going a mile than when you're going 100 yards, right?
Well,
So,
you're not.
we
you're
get
not
over
necess-
here, and go ahead.
You're not necessarily sighting the ley line until you're about a third out.
You can sight the ley line from anywhere.
Right, but you're not
Now,
necessarily.
do we want to sight it from here?
No,
Yeah, if that's where we are, that's where we want to sight it from.
right, but that's not where you maybe want
No,
to
that's
go.
not what we want to be.
That may not be the place you should be, but maybe that's the place you are,
Okay.
okay? So you can sight it from anywhere. I can sight it from down here. Is it gonna be lining up? No. Right? So it doesn't matter where you are, you can still sight and find out, I got more to go, oh, I went too far. If you wait till you're here, before you tack over, and you're going this way, too far away from the mark. So you really want to be here, so you can go around the mark. All right? And you can pinch up a little bit if you're short, or you can fall off a little bit if you're long, right? But you want to be close. You want to be close. And the more you practice it, the closer you'll be. I know some people that always run short of the ley line because they're so afraid of overstanding. Which is worse?
Hundreds.
Overstanding
No, hundreds.
a boat length or understanding a boat length? Which is worse? Which is more costly?
Under.
Understanding. Why? Because you're going to have to tack twice to get around that mark. You have to put 2 tacks in. If you're over by a boat length, you can foot off and actually go a little bit faster and get to the mark. Right? If you're right on, you're like, but we have wind shifts again, right? Do we know what the wind shifts are? Are they every 5 seconds? Are they every 30 seconds? Are they every 30 minutes? I get a lift, oh, I'm above. I get a header, I'm below. Do I always follow that? Depends on how far you are. The closer you get, the less you follow that shift, and you just try to go straight to the mark. You can't pinch too high. You just go as close as you can, and maybe you'll have to do a short tack at the mark or close to the mark. Boat length and then tack back, just to get around.
Cursing helps.
But if you're down here, on the ley line, a mile away, if there's a lift or a header, you can't take advantage or fight it. There's a header, you got a mile to go, not at the mark, right? So you don't want to be way out here. So when in doubt, stay in the middle of the force, what I'm saying. If you're in doubt, if you're not really sure what's going on with the headers and lifts, and you haven't perfected that yet, don't go to the corner. Now, if you're over early, and everybody goes left, what's the harm of you going right? You're already last. You're already way last. Because you got to come back.
Get lucky.
Hail Mary.
It's a Hail Mary. Exactly. It's a Hail Mary. You're going to commit a Hail Mary, you go bang the corner and hope you get a good lift and can make up some of that distance. If you're the faster boat and you get a bad start, you don't do that. If you're the slower boat and you don't get a good start, you might want to do that. And then you're out sailing by yourself, right? And what's the other advantage of sailing by yourself? There's no bad air. What's the advantage of being first? There's no bad air for this guy. He's got clean air all the way around. So if you get off to a good start, you're ahead of the pack and less bad air. Now, if you're in a situation where you have the Swan 45, it rates -18, and the Freya's 33 rates 114. We don't worry about that. If the Swan 45 is giving you bad air, it won't be there long. Okay? If you're giving the Swan bad air, you won't be for long. Okay? So it doesn't really make any difference. But boats that are similar, like I was sailing against Incendiary. He rates 75, I rate 78. It's close. The boats are very close in speed, got a little bit of advantage downwind. But I can, if we were close, we were close, and we're gonna stay close. We didn't usually pull away unless it was extreme conditions one way or the other.
What if you're at the bottom of your rating band?
And you're playing catch up the whole time. You gotta stay as close as you can, right? And hopefully you can correct over them if you sail a good race. Always sail
Does
your
that
own
change
race.
your clear wind strategy?
You have to stay, you have to pay more attention about keeping your air clear. So you might have to do attack. If you're behind a guy like this, if he's faster, is he a lot faster or is he just a little faster? Or is he not faster? If he's a lot faster, he's gonna pull away from you, and as farther away he gets, the less effect he's gonna have on you. All right? If you're faster, you may get up in here and not be able to pass him because you're in bad air, and he's not. Even if you're here, you still be in a little bit of bad air. You may not be able to pass him, even though you're a faster boat. Say he rates 12 seconds faster than you. Yeah, it's not a lot. You know, if he's in good air and you're in bad air, even if you're 12 seconds faster, you're never gonna pass him. You're gonna get stuck. I remember out here last year, we came across a reach to sea. It was kind of a reach. We didn't have spinnakers up, but it wasn't exactly close hauled because of the wind shift. And the J109 we're coming into the finish. This is me, this is the J109. This was a Division 1 boat or Division 3 boat or something. And he was following the Division 3 boat. It was light air. Dun, 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 dun. Just charged right past him. Because I didn't have that bad air, he had that bad air.
But if you were that far below the mark, would you tack out of the way with that bad air?
There's no mark here, we were coming to a finish that was over here.
Oh, okay.
And we were all pointed at the finish. I was just a couple of boat lengths to windward.
Another disadvantage is if you hit that ley line way out, you're gonna have boats dropping into that ley line.
Well, yeah,
Faster boats ahead of you, just
Yeah,
giving you dirty
they're gonna
air.
drop in here and give you bad air,
Yeah.
Right.
you know?
So if you're at the bottom of your rating band, do you push that starboard ley line when you come into that late, or like?
I would try not to stay out. I'd try not to be out here.
Yeah. But like, would
You
you?
know, I try to
would you
come in
go
here
for
somewhere.
a ley line maybe?
Port ley line's tricky because then again, you know, if you're coming in a port ley line, you're like starboard ley line, what happens? You gotta go around them. You have to, and if there's 3 boats here,
In line.
and you're coming in this way, you gotta go around them all.
Well, if you're at the bottom of
Now,
that
you can
thing-
come in and tack underneath them, are you gonna make the mark? or are you gonna pinch to the mark? I come in and I tack underneath him because I don't want to go all the way around. Now I'm pinching. So I'm slowing, and then they're just gonna pass you anyway. Because I'm slow.
So if you're at the bottom of your band, wouldn't you just focus on trying to sail the shortest course you could, the fastest you
I would
could?
try to
Because,
sail,
like, you
if
don't-
I'm at the bottom of my band, I would try to sail in clear air. And I'd work the lifts and headers. But I'd sail in clear air. So if I started behind, I would tack until my air was clear, then I'd come back. Right?
And once you go around the windward mark, the wind's still coming from that
The
direction. You're
wind's still
now
coming this
blocking-
way.
You're now blocking air. to
Well, if you
flow
come right
through.
around somebody, both come around the mark, this doesn't stay up, but you're gonna be blocking his air.
That's right,
So
so that's where you make up
that's-
time.
Next week,
Okay.
we'll talk about that next week.
But that's,
Right now, we're gonna talk about, the ley lines. Are we clear with ley lines? How do we find them? How far do we go? Big question. If in doubt, stay in the middle. If you're not good at ley lines, and you know you're not good at judging ley lines, don't go out here, because you can't judge it. You're not good at it. The better you get at judging them, the further out you can go and be safe. So I would stay, if I'm not good at ley lines, I would stay in the middle. I wouldn't go to this one, and I wouldn't go to this one. I would stay in the middle. I would just make my tacks to keep my air clear, right? As long as the shifts weren't huge, you'll be okay. The shifts are huge, you gotta be in phase, which means when you get the header, you gotta tack so it's a lift. All right, if you get a lift, you stay on it. Does all this make any kind of sense? Drilling anything home. See people in the back looking at their phones. Is this making any sense to you back there? He can't even hear me. The guy on the phone.
He's taking notes.
I was fact checking.
It was fact check. Was I okay?
Yeah.
Did I okay? So, when in doubt, stay in the middle. Stay in clear air.
You're using your.
For the love of God, don't follow a smaller boat around the court.
You're using your.
A slower boat on the
telltales
court.
to trim.
What's that?
You're using your telltales to trim, your jib
You're gonna use your telltales to trim.
And
You're
you're
gonna use
looking
your-
ahead of for other boats.
You're gonna use your telltales to trim. You're gonna use your compass and the land in front of you.
Do you look at your wind axis and carry?
Oh, always. That's like one of my rotations. It's in my rotation.
I never do.
And that, when I think I'm trimmed right, I look up and I'm like, that should be right,
Yeah.
okay? If that's wrong, then I'm trimmed wrong. I may be following my telltales, but something's wrong, okay? That's a check for me. That's like checks and balances. That's one of the checks. I know people that they don't look at that, but let me tell you, you take it off the boat, a lot of people will be lost. They say they don't look at it.
Do you look at your
Everybody
wind
does.
angle on the instruments, or do you just lose the delta?
You know, instruments are really sophisticated these days. You can buy compasses that you can set. Okay, this is starboard tack, this is port tack, and when it varies, it'll tell you you're on a head or a lift, and that's fine. If you're using the compass, you know 180, 185, 175. Yeah, you can use that to tell you whether you're on a lift or a header.
Write
You
it
can-
down or remember it?
You can remember it. I mean, come on. If you can't remember it, then just stay in the middle.
No, I'm talking about your shifts. I mean,
Well, you know what?
It's very useful. I mean,
Well, you know, here's the
you
thing.
that ship 10 times.
Here's the thing. Last time I went upwind, we were doing 180.
You got better.
All right? Come around the mark. I say to myself, last time I was doing 180, what am I doing now? Is it 180? Then I know the wind is steady, and I don't have to worry about it as much, right? But if it's 15 degrees one way or the other, I'm gonna say, okay, we're in a different wind breeze. Then that changes everything. Do they change the course in a short race? Probably not. On a Wednesday night, it's an hour and a half race at the most. Do they change the course? Most likely not. They may change the windward mark if it's drastic. You know, I think they're gonna change it for 5 degrees. I wouldn't even move the pin on the starting line for 5 degrees. They'd make you sweat it out, make you figure it out. It's part of the game.
We usually go to fixed marks, so they're not,
Well, we use fixed marks, so,
Yeah.
but they can change to another fixed mark. Like the first time you went to G, then you can go to E next time.
Right.
And they'll make the course change.
or they can change the
At the
start
leeward
line.
mark. If they're making a course change at the windward mark, when that affects what leeward mark, they have to do it before the first boat gets around. Which when we had this Swan sailing, they never made a change because the Swan was over. By the time the race committee figured it out, they were already at the mark. It was too late. They couldn't get a committee boat up there to make the change. But that's, you know, but they could change the other divisions, right? 'Cause 5 and 4 went off first, they could change Division 3, they could change Division 4, right? And then they put up a 4, sound the horns, and do the change. Now, we have a mark here. The wind is coming from the top of the board. We have our ley lines. Then we have a 3 boat length circle. And in our case, let's just say this is a 3 boat length circle, even though it'll be a little short, we don't have a big enough board. If we come in on port tack, we have to worry about all the starboard tack boats. Right? If we come in here and tack in a 3 boat length zone, do we have any rights? We're an inside boat, but we have no rights. This has to be done outside the circle. It's gotta be done here. And as soon as the lead boat, and how do we determine how big the circle is? You have 30-foot boats and 40-foot boats. What makes the determination?
The first boat.
Whether it's 60 feet or 90 feet, or is it 120 feet? The first boat that enters. If that's a 40-foot boat, then it's 3 40-foot boats. Now he's here, and now this guy enters, he's a 30-foot boat. Where's the zone for this guy? It's not 40, because he's gone, he's not part of this anymore. It's between these 2 boats, right? It's whoever enters the zone first.
You're saying that the distance changes if there's a lead boat that gets around the mark?
If that lead boat is going to be in contact with you, overlap, okay? If that lead boat is not, and you're with 2 other boats, it's whoever enters the zone first, between the 2 boats that are overlapped. You know, you can be here and here, all going to the mark, right? Boats are the same speed, they're gonna get to the mark at the same time. As soon as this guy hits the zone, rules change. You can no longer, bring him head to wind. You have to do proper course. And also, he has to let you around the mark if you can get there. Now, if you get up here with the guy, and you're here, you can't get around the mark without doing something drastic, right? You're gonna have to go head to wind, maybe to shoot the mark around. You have no rights at head to wind. He no longer has to give you room because you're not giving him opportunity. You're doing it at the last minute. He's gotta have opportunity to keep clear, right? So if you're here and you have to tack, tough noogies.
But if you give him opportunity, you can take him up to when to go around the mark.
Well, he's gonna go, if you're here, and he knows you can make the mark, and he can make the mark, he's gotta give you room to get around the mark. You can't take him up here.
Right, but if
You
you're
have to go
also
around the
there,
mark.
you can shoot it up, and he has to let you over.
He has to let you go around the mark. You have to go around the mark in a seaman-like manner, and he's gotta stay clear of you.
So the inside boat would.
A lot of things happen here. A lot of things happen at the Windsor Mark. One of the most important things that happen is that the yellow boat is coming into the mark. He's so concerned about you, he's not paying attention. So he does one of these. Comes around the mark really tight, like this. What's that? That's opportunity. To me, that's opportunity. I'm gonna come around not so tight, and I'm gonna go in here. He's gonna be going upwind, or he's gonna be going downwind, and I'm gonna go inside. So, you don't wanna go past the mark too far, farther than you have to, because you don't wanna let the other guy in here, in your breeze, right? He's right in your breeze going downwind. And upwind is more drastic. But coming downwind, he's right in your breeze. You know, you've fallen off.
But you only have to leave him enough room to get through.
That's right. You only have to leave him enough room to
So
go
if you
around
press
in a
him-
seaman-like manner.
If you press him to the mark, he's gotta turn later.
If you
Giving you
press
an
him-
opportunity, correct?
If you press him to the mark and you don't hit him, if he hits the mark, you're at fault. It's your fault he hit the mark.
Well, if you just, well, I don't mean press him, but I mean,
You don't need to give him, 10 boat lengths. You need to let him get around the mark without hitting you and the mark. If one of those things, if he hits you or the mark, he could be a really bad driver. And he hits the mark, you're still at fault. Because the fact is that you didn't give him enough room. You'd have to have like 17 witnesses to overcome that. You know what I mean? If he's just a bad driver, you gave him plenty of room and he hits the mark anyway,
yeah,
and then he starts screaming at you, you didn't give me enough room, it's hard to prove that you didn't give him enough room because it's the mark. And it's also hard to prove,
right, but you don't have to leave him enough room where he can come way out.
no. But you wanna know something? If he's gonna go way out, so are you, at that point.
No, I mean before the mark, so he can cut the mark quick.
No, you do not have, you have to give him enough distance to get around the mark without hitting it and you. And if there's big seas, you have to give him more, or big wind, you have to give him more room.
So
Yeah.
Marcus is asking an interesting point. If you want to be able to make a tight turn around the mark, if you go out and give him room so that you both can make it.
If I was this boat,
Yeah,
I would stay high. Okay, I'd try to sail a little bit high, let him come in here and make his turn, because chances are he's not gonna be as high, and he's gonna turn late.
Right. Well,
And
that's
you'll
what you're
still be
hoping.
behind him, but you'll be in his breeze, you'll be more in his breeze,
Depends where you're going.
I'm not saying,
Yeah,
an overlap has to be small. Right? And the smaller the overlap, you're gonna be here sooner, and you're gonna kick your stern out, because you're turning, and chances are you'll be all right. If you're neck and neck, it's more of a problem. Okay, I hit the mark, what do I do?
You gotta go back and go around again.
It's not his fault, he gave me enough room, I just hit the mark.
protest flag.
You have to sail clear, so I would just sail over here a little bit, let everybody in, do my turn, one tack, one jibe, and continue.
Just a turn.
It's one turn if you hit the mark. If you hit a person, our rules, general rules are inside 3 boat length circle, it's 2 turns.
hit it.
Otherwhere on the course, it's 1 turn. If you foul him in any way, you don't have to hit him to foul him. He's on starboard, you're on port, you know?
You made a comment that the boat coming in on port doesn't have rights, but
Well, if other boats are on starboard, they have no rights.
after they complete their tack and now
There's-
they're on starboard, do you still have to give them room?
If they're overlapped,
Yes.
yeah.
Once they
Well,
complete their
but
tack, they're on starboard.
What happened to me,
Not with the.
I'm going around the mark.
That's why I'm asking, I didn't.
This guy came in underneath and was short, so he was pinching up. So he was coming right, he was right there. And I was giving him just enough room to get around. He pulled his 8-foot spread out and took out my stanchion. He did something. We were clear ahead. We were here, and he had to head up. So he was moving from left to right, so he did 2 things. He altered his course, left to right, and it was light air. And he pulled his sprit out. He did 2 things that I couldn't avoid. He made a maneuver, didn't give me time to keep clear. He pulled his sprit out. Now he's 8 feet ahead. Not ahead of me, but ahead of where he was. Didn't give me time. I'm already turning around the mark. Right? What was the key factor in the jury's decision? Here. He took out my stern stanchion and bent it backwards. So it showed that he was moving from left to right. If he just poked me by pulling it out, it would have bent it more inwards, right? But since he bent the whole stanchion backwards, they assumed that he was also changing course when that happened. Because there's no way, you know, he says we were here. And then I turned down into his, if I turn down, my stern's gonna kick out, so they didn't buy it. They didn't buy his defense. Because when you turn the boat, which part of the boat moves? It ain't the bow, it's the stern. The rudder's in the back, it's not in the front.
Explain again, if you're a port tack first in the zone, you're saying that person has, the port tack still has no rights, or?
If you're in the zone, and there's other boats coming here that are not in the zone,
Yeah,
can you cross them cleanly?
that's my question,
Well, that is the question.
yeah.
If you can cross them cleanly, then you don't have to worry about it.
What if you can't?
If you can't, you gotta go behind.
because
You
you're
can't
port-
make this guy flinch. This guy's coming in here, and you're coming in here. This is his first day with the boat. He sees you coming and he panics. You're at fault,
Because I'm a port tack,
because you're a port tack.
regardless if I'm first.
Now, if it's me and someone else that I know well, they can probably go closer, because they know I'm not gonna flinch, or I know they're not gonna flinch. Right? If it's me and another good sailor.
What if the boat that's on starboard isn't on the ley line, he's up a little bit, and the port tack boat comes in and tacks and,
Can't come down on a guy. You gotta be, if you're reaching to the mark, you have less,
Can't take them above close.
you're less right. That's all I'm gonna say.
You have no rights.
Just-
in port.
No, you gotta still have rights, still ports, he can't come up here and take you out. He still has to tack, but if you're reaching, he can bring you to close haul.
Yeah.
But if you're reaching down this way, you know, you have to go to close haul.
If there's enough room.
He's not
to do
fouling.
that.
He's not fouling you if you're doing that, because you can do this. You're bearing away already. You're already You understand?
And if you-
He
but if you
can't
don't-
judge, he can't judge you and what you're gonna do if you're up here. And if you wanna come down to close on the mark, he can't anticipate that. He's gonna think you're gonna go on your course that you're going, okay? So if you suddenly go down, now you're not giving him opportunity. You look at it that way. Or if you're just coming straight down this way because you way overstood, you got room. You still have to give him room, still overlap. Now, if he's short and he's pinching up, like head to wind, he's got no rights.
As long as you're not taking him above close haul, and you can, and he can still get around the mark, you can.
Well, you're not taking him below,
Yeah.
you mean.
As long, if you're the port tack boat, and you can tack in there without.
You can
taking
tack in
him
there and there's
above
room,
close haul,
and there's room because he's overstood by 10 boat lengths, then there's room. All right? And then he can't just shut the door. The same in the starting line. If you're coming into a starting line, and there's a barging guy here, and here's the committee boat. You know, there's 2 boat lengths, or a boat length. And he's like, oh, there's room, I can go in. You can't just go head to wind and close it out. Right? You have to give him opportunity. What's opportunity mean? What does it mean? It means that he can avoid you if he can. Right? He can stay out of your way. You're not changing course at him, or then he has to panic.
It's
To stay
very
there.
important to see, but if you set up, if you're the port tack boat outside, just outside of the tack on that starboard boat, set up right next to that starboard tack boat, just outside the big circle. When you get to the mark, you can take him all the way, you can take him past Coast Hall to get around that.
This
mark.
guy?
You can do whatever you need to do to get around that mark.
Here?
Set up to leeward of him, yeah, outside of.
You can't take him past close hole.
If you set up outside of 2 boat plate circle,
Outside of 2 1 length circle, he's got to stay out of your way.
right, but you've set up on.
And you can go
outside
head to
of-
wind if you want.
You set up, you've tacked to leeward of him outside the 3 boat plate circle,
Okay.
and you are coming into the mark,
You're here like this,
and
maybe?
you are short of the mark, but he's not. You can take him up past Coast Hall to get around the mark. Right?
Not
Or
once
you
you
got
enter.
overlap, so.
Once you're overlapped,
you got
Yeah.
rights.
Right. 'Cause
you
set
can't,
up
you
outside.
can't, yeah, you can't luff him in here.
Explain the overlap.
Overlap is when any part of your hull
Yeah,
is in front of the aftmost part of their hull.
explain to me why when that takes effect.
When that overlap is established.
Before you enter.
But if you
Before you.
Doesn't matter. An overlap is an overlap, has nothing to do with any of this in the rules. An overlap is when one boat is inside another.
overlap outside the 3 boat plate circle, you
It's
can
different.
take that
It's-
boat up outside, up above Coast Hall.
But you can't just take him to Kingdom Come.
Not to Kingdom Come, but to above Coast Hall to get, for you to get
Well,
around the mark.
Well, your close haul may not be the same as his close haul,
All inside boat if you've got no.
right?
Yeah.
Your close haul may not be the
Maybe
same
you
as
don't
his,
have- You're like shooting him to get around.
right? Some boats point higher than others, so their close hulls are gonna be different. So if you can't take someone above close haul, you can't take it above his close haul. Even though you can go further, you can't take him above his.
He's saying if the lower boat's actually, I guess, like pitching up, almost shooting the mark.
Well, if you're going head to wind,
He
you're
has the
short,
rights to push
you're
him up.
short, you got nothing.
Get rights?
But he
You're just
has
gonna
to
slow
use
down.
the room.
And he's gonna go past. Right, unless you're in front of him doing it, it's not gonna be an issue. Because you're gonna slow down if you're pinching to the mark. Right? It's not gonna be an issue, he's gonna pull away. He's gonna break the overlap. If he breaks the overlap inside the zone, does he still have to give you room to get around the mark. Yes. It's gotta break the overlap out, once you hit the zone, overlaps that have been established, stay established. Now, it may not make any difference if you're going head to wind, because you can't get there anyway, right? If you're gonna head to wind, or you have to tack, to get around the mark, you can't get there. So it doesn't make any difference. But once the overlap is established, when one of the boats is in the zone, it stays. And the rights stay. It used to be two boat lengths, now it's 3.
So in this example, they both enter the zone, there is an overlap, the blue boat is slower than the yellow boat. The yellow
Right.
boat,
And the overlap is broken,
Doesn't
right?
matter.
And he gets a puff of air and comes back in,
the
there's
yellow-
still an overlap.
And the yellow boat still has to give the blue boat.
The yellow boat still has to,
Even if the yellow boat stays, breaks the overlap and it never is reestablished.
it doesn't have to be reestablished once they're inside, once he's inside the zone, it stays.
Why does the yellow boat have to give way?
Overlap.
Why does he what?
Why does the yellow boat need to give way? Because they know it's an overlap.
Because he's got inside, it's an inside overlap, and you have to give him
Yeah,
let him
yeah,
around,
yeah,
you gotta let him go around the
Can't
mark.
force them to.
Yeah,
Otherwise, out here, who's got the right of way?
the yellow boat.
The blue boat. Right, Lord has the right of way.
Yeah.
Right, so Lord can luff him up here, once you hit the zone, you gotta go at the mark,
Yeah. But
right?
But if the.
His job may be still to luff inside the zone,
Because he's.
he still has to keep clear.
Yeah, he may need to luff.
He may need to luff a little bit to get around the mark, and that's, you know, as long as he keeps his speed up, he's still entitled to room to get around the mark. As long as the overlap was established out here and carried into the zone. If the overlap is broken here, there is no overlap. How do you break an overlap?
Wiggle your rear
You're
end.
both overstood, how do you break an overlap? Head up. Get into the zone up here instead of down here. If you're like this, and you can, before you get to the zone, you head up, break the overlap, dive into the zone. Now there's no overlap. Hard to do. You know, just a little technicality. Let's see what we got.
If I'm correct, the boat, if there's a disagreement between boats, if there's overlap, the boat in the front
Boat that enters the circle first is probably,
is the one to make the call, and you have to go by that one, you could protest them,
Yeah.
but.
well, first of all, if it's a small overlap, can you see it from back here? Probably not a good judge. Right? Person up here can see it, or if you have someone standing on the bow, which you probably won't, unless, you know, you're ready to set a spinnaker and there's someone up there, then you might. But it's hard to judge back here whether there's a small overlap here. So it's really up to the bow guy to tell you.
But I believe the rule says if you're arguing, if the guy up front says, no, you don't have overlap, it's the guy up front,
If this guy says no overlap,
you have to go with that,
and this guy says overlap,
right?
It is, the rule says, if there is reasonable doubt that a boat obtained or broke an overlap in
Did-
time,
and as soon as he
it shall
did
be
not.
presumed that she did not.
that's right.
That's the rule.
That's the rule. So, if it's in doubt whether it was established or broken, if it's a doubt, it has been broken. Or it is not established. Okay? That's the way that's written.
Steve, so So,
But can this guy, a boat length away from the zone, judge when this guy's in the zone? It's another grade. That's another thing you take into consideration, you know, if you have a protest. Can he judge the zone from back here? 2 40-foot boats.
Well, I've been in
Maybe.
that argument.
You're gonna have that
And I had to
argument.
let the guy ahead go because
So what happens in a protest room? This guy's gonna say, my whole boat was in the zone. And this guy's gonna say, it wasn't. So what does that mean? Probably halfway in. So you're in. So in doubt, that's why it's written that way. So if you're in doubt, if the overlap is broken or not, what does it say?
Assume it's not.
Assume it's not. Assume the negative. You're in doubt whether it was established or not, assume what? That it's not,
So if you're ahead, stay ahead.
you know? So you don't make a change in rights without it being clear. If it's not clear, the rights don't change. That's almost in any rule situation. Right? If it's not clear, then rules don't change.
so with the way we race on Wednesdays,
Yes.
alternate divisions, you start in different times, but many times we end up at the mark. Different divisions end up at the mark at the same time.
Correct.
A slower boat or faster boat approaching the zone, right?
How do you manage that? Is that what you're asking? I mean, the same rules apply.
Right.
Overlap, inside, whichever boat enters the first is the size of the zone. All those things apply. If you're the faster boat and you're behind, that means you're gonna be coming up here. That means it's more of a problem. If you're the slower boat and you're behind, it's not gonna be a problem because you'll probably pull ahead and get around the mark.
So when you're the slower boat and the faster boat approaching,
If you're the slower boat and a faster boat is approaching,
right, and typically the faster boat is more competitive.
right, well, where, does he make an overlap before or after you get to the zone? Is what you have to figure out. Once you get to the zone, if there's an overlap, there's an overlap. If there's no overlap, there's no overlap. Even if he's a faster boat, he's gonna come in like this, right? He's gonna beat you to the mark. If there's no overlap outside the zone, he doesn't have a right to do that. Being bigger and faster doesn't give you a right. That's not part of the rules. It's position when the first boat enters the zone.
Regardless of division.
Regardless of division, I mean, you ever have boats not sailing get in your way? And they foul you? Can you do anything about it? You can protest them, but they don't really care because they're not racing. That's not gonna do anything, so that's life.
Regardless of rules, we're just three fucking around on that mark because we're a bunch of idiots, and your spinnaker boats are coming. Like, what pisses you off? Like, what can we do? To,
Okay,
like,
there's
to,
a
like,
few,
not
there's a
be
few
jerk
things
off?
that happen between the non-spinnaker boats and the spinnaker boats on Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
And most of it is at the leeward mark. It's not usually at the windward
it's-
mark. Because if we're going around the same windward mark, everything applies. We're all going upwind together,
Yeah.
all right? The first windward mark, you're not gonna be there, because we start from. It's when we come around the second time to that windward mark, and you're just hitting the leeward mark. Are you ahead and behind in your race? If you're very behind, just stay out of everybody's way, because just be courteous.
Yeah.
You know, say, hey, go ahead. You know, be my guest. Pack away. Yeah, if you're behind, you're behind.
Yeah.
If you're in the hunt, you got to stay in the hunt, right? Then you go by the rules. But if you're way behind, I mean, be realistic. Be realistic.
Pet
Not that
peeves
you want to.
just piss
Pet
you off.
my pet peeve. The only pet peeve I have is at the leeward mark. when you have boats coming in here, right? From, Jive Mark over here, right? There's boats coming into the Leeward Mark, and then you have the Spinnaker boats coming straight down, or not usually straight down. But you gotta realize, the overlap probably established when you hit the Jive Mark.
I've figured at times.
So hopefully, if you go around the Jive Mark and there's boats to the left of you, they all have rights over you. Now, they should get to the mark before you. But just remember that, this is a mark of the course like any other. An overlap's an overlap. And the overlap can be established out here between this boat and this boat. You're coming this way, and he's coming this way. There's still an overlap. It could be a mile away, but it's still an overlap. And just remember, if you see a Spinnaker boat coming in here, and you're coming in here, he probably has rights, unless it's really light, and you enter the zone here, and there's no overlap yet. You're here, and he's here. And he's faster, and he gets into the zone after you, and creates an overlap. Then he has no rights. Right? But what happens, what's going on Spinnaker boats here?
The spinnakers are coming down.
Spinnakers, there's a lot of activity. We're not just tightening up our sails and going around the mark. There's a lot of stuff going on. Spinnakers have to come down, jibs have to go up, rolled in, rolled out, whatever it is. There's a lot of activity here on the Spinnaker boats. So be careful. Keep that in mind. That it's not as easy for them to change course as it is for you. That doesn't mean that they're right. Doesn't mean that they're not supposed to keep clear of you. If they're coming in here on port tack, and you're coming in here on starboard tack, it would be the other way around.
It could also be a good opportunity to
Yeah.
round inside them,
You
round
still have-
behind and inside them,
Yeah.
because they're
If,
really
if,
involved in that.
chances are, in your boat, if you're coming around that mark, and you try to push ahead of them, they're gonna pass you and stay in your bad air. You'll stay in their bad air longer.
I
If
figured
you
that.
let them go, they'll get away from you faster.
If you let them go, you just get them out of your life.
Get them out of your life.
If you cut them off.
If you cut them off, they're gonna be in your life longer, and then maybe they'll shadow your breeze, especially if you're coming downwind. Right? Like that example we had before. You had a boat here, you had a boat here, Spinnaker boat here, non-Spinnaker boat here, and I was up here. Bad air. Clean air. I just motored on by. Motored on by both of them. But I looked over this guy, I looked over there, and I'm like, man, I feel bad for him. But that's a lucky break for me. And you know what? Sometimes you need a lucky break. It's not all, And
But seeing those situations,
But the
setting up,
difference-
like ahead of time can be
the
huge.
difference is, he could have tacked sooner. He decided to carry it longer and get behind that boat. I saw the boats, and there was a couple more boats too, along here. I said, I'm gonna go early, because I don't wanna be in their bad air. He didn't do that. So something I did let me get past him. So it wasn't just lucky, but it was lucky. All right, you got any questions on that windward mark? What time do we have? Who's got the time?
8:40.
What?
8:40.
8:40, we're almost done.
Just to be clear though, you're talking on the downwind mark, it's a different
not
set of
doing
rules
downwind
as
today.
as the windward mark.
We're talking about the windward mark today. I
Right.
don't want to talk about the downwind mark.
Well, weren't you on that?
I went off topic a little bit, but
Right.
I'm regrouping at 8:40.
But
So
just to
5
be
more
clear,
minutes.
the rules are different in that situation,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Than the windward mark.
Well, there's different rules. All right, so we're getting to the windward mark. What's our next thing to do? What are we going to do? We're going to go around the mark. We're going to go on another leg. When do we plan that leg? after we get around the mark, or on the way up to the mark? On the way up. You know what the wind is doing because you can feel it, it's on your boat. You know where the other boats are. It's easy, because you know where everybody is. How am I gonna get around that mark? We plan that ahead of time, and what am I gonna do once I get around the mark? Is the wind shifted, so maybe I'll jibe? And go off this way? Because there's less current over here, more breeze over here. I gotta make those decisions before I get around the mark. So make a plan on your leg. You make a plan, you make your windward plan before the start. Now, do you always stick to the plan? Not always, because things change. Wind changes direction unexpectedly. I want to go right, but everybody's going right, and I'm just in bad air. That makes a change. So then I got to go left, or vice versa. Everybody's going left. When everybody goes left off the starting line, and I want to go right, what happens when I'm with this boat? Wants to go right.
Wait.
It's gotta wait till this guy goes, then this guy goes, and then he can go. This guy's in control in this situation. This guy's in control. So he can push everybody. Past the ley line. Right? He can push everybody past the ley line. He doesn't have to go with him. He can luff up and get behind and tack and go. That's his that's his right. But he doesn't have to tack just because this guy says he's on a ley line doesn't mean this guy has to tack. And it doesn't mean this guy has to tack. Maybe the ley line, maybe one sails closer to the wind than the other, right?
But can't the black boat push the green boat? Because he's lured boat, so he has right away.
You luff,
Yeah. Slowly push that.
but if I'm this guy, it depends on how close they are. If they're a boat length apart, there's only so much luffing you can do without slowing down. All right? And once you slow down, you get behind, and then it becomes this situation. And then you might as well just luff up a little more and wait till you can go. But it's got to be clear, right? You have to be clear. What I mean by clear, I mean, it's like making a right on red. You got to make sure there's not another car in the way. And just because you can luff this guy, should you? I see this all the time. I'm doing it because I can. And then what happens?
Slow.
These guys slow down and this guy's free as a bird. And way ahead. And then everybody that's back here has caught up to you. You can screw someone else, but you'll probably screw yourself. So, just because you can doesn't mean you should. If there's a tactical advantage of you doing so, exercise your rights. If there's not, and that's another thing, going upwind, you got boats on port and starboard. Who's got the right of way? Who's got the right of way? Starboard tack, right? Starboard tack boat's going left, the green boat. This guy has the right of way. I want to go right. I'm in the green boat and I want to go right. What do I do with this situation?
Have it go past
I need to keep going
and then tack.
and then tack on top of it. What if I want to go left and I'm in this situation? If I want to stay left and going right is the wrong thing to do. Absolute wrong thing to do. You're going into the current, there's less wind, and the shift is you're not pointed at the mark, you're more pointed at the mark this way. You're on the lift.
You may tell him to pass if you want him to.
Yeah, right.
Let them pass. Just because you have the right, it doesn't mean you have to exercise it. Doesn't mean you should exercise it. Let them pass. Tell them, go ahead. Now, you can't tell them, go ahead and then hit them. That's more trouble than you want. It's unsportsmanlike conduct in a lot of people's eyes. When in doubt, do without. Right? If you're in doubt whether you have rights over someone, just get the hell out of there. You don't wanna,
If you're on starboard, you don't have to do anything. That's
no, but
problem.
if you don't know that you're on starboard,
It looks like you're on starboard.
okay, this is your first day out on the water. I had a guy in a regatta that there were judges at, was yelling starboard at people when he was on port. He didn't do it once, he was doing it all day.
Like, can you protest that guy
Yeah,
just for bad
yeah.
sportsmanship?
Well, I went to the judge and I brought it to the judge's attention after we got back on land. I was ahead of him, so I didn't care. But he was doing it to other people too. And I said, you know what this guy's doing? So the judge went over to him and said, I'm gonna be watching you. If you do that tomorrow, I'm gonna disqualify you. I nipped it in the bud by just talking to the judge afterwards. Now, could I protest him afterwards? No. I just,
Because he didn't do it to you, or just?
well, it doesn't matter who he did it to. Didn't matter who he did it to. It was after the fact. I couldn't, if he did it to me, I could protest him on the water. You know? You know, or if I said starboard and he said, well, I'm on starboard too, and he was on port, and that was his comment to me. I'm like, well,
There's not gonna be much.
you're either a real moron or, it wasn't his first day racing, you know?
Gonna screw you.
He was just trying to intimidate
Okay.
improperly.
No.
How do you intimidate someone properly? Get ahead of him, beat him. I had a guy I used to race against, this is 20 years ago, and our boats were the same speed, and he's a really good sailor, and he beat me more times than not. But if I ever crossed him first, he went bananas. And then I just pulled further and further and further ahead. You know, he would just get so upset, you know, oh, he crossed, you know, not supposed to do that to us, blah, blah, blah. Boats are the same rating. So, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you're right or you have rights doesn't mean you should exercise them. Is it good for you? Is it gonna do something for you to exercise your right? Is it gonna do something for you to keep going in a straight line, right? Then you exercise your rights. But if, like I said, if I'm this guy, if I want to continue left because right is headed, I want him to go. I don't want him to go left because he's going to go left in front of me, and then I'm going to have to tack out of his barrier and go right, and that's the wrong way, right? So I won't do that. Then I'll let him go by. Let him go merrily along. But I bet you guaranteed at the next crossing, I'll be ahead of him because he's on the head. He's headed. Lifting. All right, we talked about a lot of things tonight. Talked about planning your course. We backtracked into starting. We're going to use some of that information to plan our upwind leg. And then when we get around, maybe the wind is shifted, and we're going to maybe change what we thought earlier. Halfway up the leg, there's a big shift. So, we're not going to go right coming downwind, we're going to go left. We're not going to go with the current. We're going with the wind, it's over here. And pretty much that's upwind and windward marks. Any questions? And some of the rules get around. How many people have a rule book? All those that don't have a rule book, get a rule book. Go to US Sailing, join US Sailing, and then they have, if you go into the education, you know, their library, they have things, and I have a few of them here. A little card like this, it's a little laminated card. It's rules in brief. I have about 10 left from last year. I'm not gonna buy more. If you want one, you should buy one. I can make,
Those are the rules?
well, this is rules in brief. These are just basic rules when boats meet. That's what you gotta concentrate on. It's part 2, when boats meet. The rest of the stuff it's relevant. I'm not gonna say it's irrelevant. It's relevant,
Oh, yeah.
but it's not as important to know off the top of your head as these. It's only 5 pages in a rule book. 5 or 6 pages in a rule book.
Julie has all the rules on her phone, she downloaded it
You can
somewhere.
download it from US Sailing. Everybody has signed in? Okay, good. We gotta get that, get people to stop not signing in. And they chase you for nothing. I'm interested in you people coming to all the classes, because it makes a lot of sense. It's a continuous program. Each class depends upon the one before. So when you miss one, we'll try to get this uploaded as soon as we can. And you can just go to the, if you have the link to one of them, you have the link to all of them. So I don't have to keep sending the links out, because if you have the link to session 1, right below it is session 2 and 3 will be there. We have to make a makeup date. I was gonna do this last week and I just didn't get around to it. We need to find out what day of the week, because we're running right up until Wednesday night sailing starts. So we have to figure out another day to make up that first day we lost. I mean, we're going in order, but we have to make up one day. So if you guys let me know what the best, I'll send out a note probably tomorrow, asking everybody, please tell me, give me 3 choices of days. Like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Wednesday's out. Because we're here all the way up until Wednesday night sailing starts.
Monday.
I'm okay on Mondays. If everybody says Monday's okay, we can do it next Monday. We can just jump up next Monday and then we'll be back on schedule on Wednesday. If you want to do next Monday, can you come Monday? Can you come Monday?
Monday.
Who can't make it next Monday? How about Tuesday? Who can't make it on Tuesday?
30th.
One guy on Tuesday. Thursday. You can't make it Thursday? And so someone's gonna have a problem.
What are you going, what will the course be, the agenda?
The last class is protests. How to file a protest, how to fill out the paperwork, and the second half of the rules. We won't finish all the rules on class 5.
I mean, I guess what is the next course? You're
Oh,
saying?
after this?
Yeah, that would be on Monday or Tuesday or Thursday. Or
Well, not until, in May would be Mondays. We can't do Monday in May. We can do next Monday, but we can't do any Mondays after that. Because I'll be taking Dave Dellenbaugh's 50 best tips. And everybody get that email or see it online?
No, they're not members.
Huh? Well, you can send it to them. Send them,
Yeah.
and if they register through Cedar Point, it's $30 instead of 45 or 50. You get a little discount because we get a big group. It's Dave Dellenbaugh's it's a webinar, it's a web series. It's 4 weeks, 4 Mondays, I think. And he's got his 50 best tips. 50 best tips. He's going to start with starting, upwind, downwind, finishing. That's the way he's going to go on the 4 weeks. I highly advise it. It may be a little over your head, but maybe not. You guys that are have never raced before, it might be a little over your head, but it won't hurt. It's a repeat of a lot of the stuff we talk about, but he'll probably go into more detail. I try to keep it at a very low level so everybody gets it. That's why I don't like to get too much into twisting the rules around. So that's it. That's all I got tonight. I'll see you guys Tuesday. Let's do it next Tuesday. So we'll do 2 nights in a row, Tuesday and Wednesday at 7. Okay? Take care. See you next week.